There is a way the human being can be so legendary in his own deception. Do you know that you cannot deceive anybody till you become masterful in deceiving yourself? You can't. The more you deceive people, the more of a monster you become. Because you tell a lie to somebody, you can't do that successfully except you tell a lie to yourself first. Because every lie or truth is a narrative, and you have to tell yourself that lie. You have to tell it so much and believe it so deeply first on your own before it can stand a chance of being accepted by somebody else. So if you know the level of psychology that has gone into your ability to perpetrate that lie, you will be very naive and stupid to think you are still the same person.
If everybody is wise, wisdom will be common with that value.
Feedback from the future.
I've tried at different times to really ask myself what type of questions will be valid as we continue to build towards the future as a body, and I mean the body of Christ. And I've come to some basic conclusions about faith and religion and how we navigate to the future. A lot of it is scary, for want of a better word. And there is no generation that will go weaker without getting drunk in their prevailing strength. You have to be so loyal to what you know for you to begin your stage of decline. Decline has essentially 5 stages. And from the most sophisticated psychologists in the world, they've concluded that there is hubris born out of success. And no decline, either of companies, of nations, of individuals, has happened without tasting of that experience, the hubris that comes from success. And it has happened time and again, and I'm going to try to take us through those kind of thoughts. I don't know what we're going to do with this music. They've got to take it out. So I'll just hold my thoughts a bit till we start. So everything we know about the church is crumbling right now. And it's crumbling in a very interesting way. The funny thing about this, just imagine when computers was coming into the world and typewriters were leaving, and how people were still investing in secretarial schools, and people were investing in typewriters, containers, people were importing typewriters. They were importing typewriters, but essentially they were investing in history. They were investing in the past, though they were in the present, and everything made sense in the present, but everything they were doing valid in the present was an investment in history. You see, I finally surrendered myself to a diagnosis I've wrestled for years, and I've lived in denial for years, and I had to accept now, which is my ADHD diagnosis. You see, for the person that doctors are worried about, out of 6 symptoms, you're supposed to have like 3, right? And they will say, wow, we need to help you, you know. I have perfect score, 6/6, so that you know how chronic it is. Then there are 12 impacts of those 6 traits, those 6 symptoms on your lifestyle. There are 12 possible impacts of it. The normal person that they are worried about should have about 3 of it. It should impact on 3 areas. In my case, it's impacting on the whole 12. So His perfect score on impact on your lifestyle. His perfect score on the symptoms. Stay with me. Then I've never shared this in public before, but I've done my IQ test again and again over 11 times. And it's 140 over 100. Do you know what that means? You could go check it out. 140 over 100 is genius. I don't talk about it at all because the combination of 140 over 100 IQ and extreme ADHD is a bad disease. It's not a testimony at all. You are just going to be a talented, self-destructive machine. And 3 weeks ago, I spent about 4 hours with my doctor on this. And he asked me a very interesting question. He said, how did you succeed? You are not supposed to succeed. With this combination, you will have thought somebody with 140 over 100 should be successful, right? He said, the greatest challenge you are going to have is being understood. If I've suffered in my life, I've suffered from being understood. I've been persecuted for being understood. People have a problem. People normally suffer from what I call self-impersonation, where you are not yourself anymore. You are impersonating who you used to be. Do you understand? Success does that to you, where you start impersonating your authentic self. You know you've lost it, but you begin to impersonate that person. What it does to you is you become incapable of honest self-evaluation, and then you don't allow restraint to understand before you interpret. And all of these things has happened to the church. And it must happen to churches, any power anywhere, governments, individuals. It must happen to them. So let me start with my, when I want to brag, I like to brag in my victories from war. I don't like to talk about testimonies from peace. So, because that's the one that is easy. So about 4 years ago, I made an investment with some people. And about 3 years ago, that investment matured so big, we set up a place, because it's going online. We set up a place in my city. And the day we open it to give out about $1 million to entrepreneurs. And it was massive, it was big, a lot of amazing things were happening there. The rent for the property that we're working with was $26,000 a month. Since you're all in America, you know that that's not cheap, particularly if you're not a billionaire and your last name is not Bill Gates or Dangote, right? So after paying that every month, $26,000, it means that every 10 months you're going to pay $260,000. This is just rent. We're not talking about any other, just rent. And about a year into it, the whole thing crashed. And of all the partners who were involved in that move, I was the only American person. So everything was resting on my social security number. Everything was resting on my credit. Everything was resting on my reputation. So I had to, and it's a big deal. We're talking about millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So I'm talking about key stakeholders with media machinery. So I had to invent a way to, there's a luxury of making a choice between good and bad. That's a gift. When you are making a choice between bad and worse, that's where wisdom is. Because you can live 80 years and never have the misfortune of making that kind of a choice. It's a tough choice. it's very difficult to accept that when I win, it's because I escaped the worst. There's no good on the table. There's no good. What is on the table is bad, worse, or end. Do you understand? So you are going to have to make a choice. The bad is collateral damage critically. So the only thing I could save in that crisis, when I looked at all the options, was my name. I knew I'm going to lose a lot of money. I convinced a woman to invest in a particular business, and she brought in $1 billion. I spoke to one gentleman who told me, "Oh, I'm trying to do this with my money. What do I do?" I said, "Okay, that's easy. Put in $2 million here. Let's go." And everything came crashing. And all I had was my name. And I saved the name. Because if you Google my name now, of all the stakeholders involved in that business, you will see everybody torn to pieces online. Some of them true, some of them just smear campaigns, right? But you won't find my name anywhere. That was the cost. Do you understand? That is the opportunity cost of being sane and being able to continue my work. Do you understand? Will I do it again? With joy. Will I do it with the same people? Never again. But I've since grown in such a way that, let me embarrass myself more. Will you believe that somebody of my caliber, who is a pioneer in the knowledge space in Nigeria and in Africa, until April, I didn't have a YouTube page. I didn't have. Which thought leader at my level? And I say this very humbly. We are the ones people coach to have a career. Do you understand? They use our words to build a career. I know it, right? I know people that, it's our words that the entire work is based on. And they don't give credit, and I don't mind. Because where it comes from is pretty much endless, to be honest. You don't know how easy it is for me to say what I say. I don't labor to know what I know, to be honest. For the most part, it's just gifts, just the gift of God, right? I did not have a YouTube page. Now, let's be clear. If you Google my name, you will see tons of videos, tons. What you will not notice is that none of it is from my platform. For years, so nobody knew. Because they thought, oh, it must be him. None. Until a gentleman that I brought up, an American that I trained and mentored for about 7 years, sat me down and showed me that I have left over $800,000 on the table since I started speaking till date on YouTube alone. And he said, you got to do something now. And then on his counsel, in April, set up a YouTube page that is growing and doing well. I'm paying salaries that I don't have to worry about. That's so much money on the table. Let me embarrass myself more. One time, we had to do some moves, and in making those moves, we expended in 2 weeks about $700,000 on jets, just flying, making meetings, running deals. $700,000 is somebody's legacy. I remember I was talking to one of my partners. Somebody had come to raise funds, about $150,000. And the person was waiting to make a pitch, and he waited and waited and waited. So I went to my partner and said, you need to talk to this guy. This guy's just waiting. We need to do something. And another partner said, what does he want though? I said, I've spoken to him, just want $150,000. I think you should see him. If we don't want to do anything with him, we should let him go. That's $150,000. And then another partner on the angle said, okay, I'll do it. I said, oh really, you're not going to see him? You're not going to talk to him, say, no, you've kept this guy waiting. Blah, blah, blah. I said, well, we should still see him. He said, nah, this is the kind of money we give to girlfriends, right? And literally, that's true. That's true. That's the kind of money that on a table, you know. The real sense in all of this is how much control you can have, and yet you are leaking badly. You are leaking so badly that if care is not taken, you are going to crash so badly. That if you don't have another type of insight that allows you to see the loopholes in that which is seemingly very successful, right? It's not the money that you lose in a crisis that is important. It is the name that you lose in a crisis that you don't recover from. And people who worry about losing money are still small. You know, you can recover from any money you lose. The tough things to recover from, particularly in a first world country, is name. It's tough. Well, until Donald Trump came to show us new ways that you can still reinvent everything, right? So why have I gone into those personal stories? I've gone into them because I've realized that we are going to see a new dimension of interpreting and understanding ministry. And a lot of what we are doing now are still based on what people did in the 60s, in the 70s, and we have no idea at all, neither have we tried to care about the type of ministry that is ahead of us. You see, before now, attendance drove engagement. Before now. But you see, in the future, engagement is what will drive attendance. And when I say attend, I don't mean just church. I mean everything you call influence and followership and all of that. Before now, people prioritize methods over mission. And in some other block, people prioritize mission over method. But in the future, you know, both method and mission must be understood as one entity. So I'll give you an example. Transportation is mission. People will always move. How we experience transformation, transportation, is method. So it was camel at the point. It was horses at the point. It was different things at different times, right? And yes, please. Are we together?
Sure.
It was different things at different times. You cool, James? Good. So, good to see you, sis. You good? So, then we moved to cars and automobile. We started flying. But it's still the same transportation. It's still one mission, different methods. Music, mission. Record, cassettes, iPod, earphones, downloads, iTunes. They are all different methods of experiencing the same mission. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The moment you, so let me give some ministries in Nigeria, ministries like Deeper Life. They were loyal to mission before God the method. Right? And mission in itself is not enough to define anything. Right? Ministries like CAC, Assemblies of God, they prioritize mission and forget the innovation of methods. But what do we have? Fast track. to, the Pentecostal explosion in Nigeria, for example. You then have methods prioritized over mission, right? And you have no idea what that means for how we navigate the future. Today is not a day to discuss the future of the church. But I want you to know that a lot of what we have known, a lot of what we have believed about how we experience God, about how we define the walking, talking relationship with the Holy Spirit, are critically human inventions. They are pure traditions. At best, the experiences of individuals documented as principles for the future. There's nothing as distracting as when teachers document their personal experience as a principle for others to follow. A lot of faith men taught, from Seed Faith from Oral Roberts to Kenneth Copeland to Mike Murdoch, a lot of those things were amazing thoughts. Almost all of those things are their personal experiences. Right? There's no such thing as sowing a seed to really get some type of harvest in an intentional, like a systemic expectation of outcome. There's nothing like that. It's just reproach. Now, if you sow seeds of any kind, there is harvest. But to say that I'm sowing this $50 seed because I want this to happen to me, is a very confident insult to all of the sovereignty of God. We don't understand God's sovereignty, but again, that is just for me to establish where I'm going. That is not the conversation. But to let you know that it's so easy to move from interpretation to principle. Illegitimately. Do you know how many women have died trying to give birth like the Hebrew women? Do you know how many women's lives have been destroyed in the what is it called, the room where they give birth? In the delivery room, insisting that they don't want surgery or they don't want something, not knowing that there's no Hebrew women power at all, because that the Hebrew women delivered in a special way was the lie that the midwives told to Pharaoh. The Hebrew women delivered normally like every woman. But because they didn't want to kill the Hebrew boys, they lied to Pharaoh that the Hebrew women are strong. Before we get to them, they deliver, which is not true. That was the lie they told to Pharaoh. Oh, come on. And God honored that lie because they were not judged and they were blessed. Right? But tomorrow's people, avoiding the necessity of due diligence, started making that announcement as a recommendation for how faith works. Such that if you are pregnant, there's one, you will deliver like the Hebrew women. Do you know leaders that have heard pray that prayer? And it's pure nonsense. Stay with me. So many things. You hear prayers like, in the year that King Uzziah died, Isaiah saw the Lord, like, really. And there was the theology. The theology is that if King Uzziah did not die, Isaiah would not have seen the Lord. Do you know how many dates were used in the Bible in the year that Belshazzar or Nebuchadnezzar? Do you know how many? So you have to go find Revelation for all these dates and what they meant. The year that King Uzziah died was the date of knowing when Isaiah saw the Lord. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't that there's anything causative between the year that he died, and Isaiah saying the Lord. People have now said, oh, Isaiah was feeding on King Uzziah, and he was, profiting on King Uzziah, and King Uzziah was his God. And so when he died, then he saw the Lord. Nonsense. Do you know that when the dream of Joseph came to pass, his mom was dead? So either the moon or the sun was not his mom. Because his dad said, are you saying that me and your mom and your brothers are going to bow down to you? Interpretation. But when the dream came to pass, the mom was dead. So either the son or one of them was not his mom at all. But in hindsight, if you go check who bowed down to him, you can interpret that dream now. Because it was his parents, because he had many mothers. Right? His parents, then civilization, because that's what Egypt represented. Then his siblings. That's the meaning of the dream. There's nothing like that, mom. And there is no way, if Jacob had lived 1,000,000 years, there's no way we could have imagined that Egypt will bow down to them. These were nomads walking in one. It's like somebody living in Zaria, having a dream that the United States of America will bow down to him. How is he going to believe that? So it's not in his context. There's no way you can imagine that. Imagine that God showed John at the island of Patmos robots. What will he call it? Assuming that Isaiah had seen a plane, will Isaiah say, thus says the Lord, I saw a plane, an airplane flying at so height? No. He doesn't know what a plane is. He's going to say, I saw a big bird with hands like iron and teeth and the sound like 1,000,000 men. That's what he's going to say. He's never going to call it an airplane because there's nothing in its context that suggests that anything like that existed. So what he's going to do? He's going to force tomorrow's people to live in the arrogance of his own time. And if tomorrow's people are not discerning, they're going to ignore their own generation and their own tomorrow, and they're going to get busy trying to force their own truth into the smallness of Isaiah's reality. Some of the monsters and some of the beasts that were described in the book of Revelations, my friend in Colombia are drawing it now. They are realizing that some of those things are machines. AI. There's no way John on the island of Patmos is going to say, I saw an AI. He's going to say, I saw a beast with eyes like, what else is going to begin to say? Come on now, am I talking to you? We must forgive the people who documented those things. The question is, what are you interpreting now? What are you interpreting now? Based on the prevailing condition of your times. There's so many things changing. The office of the pastor cannot survive the future. Not in the context that it is now. It's going to have to morph into a lesser, more ossified version of his present self. It's going to have to shed a lot of weight. Because right now, when you say you are pastor something, you are greeted with suspicion instantly. People don't understand context. As a black person, you are disrespected in the world. You can expand that to say black people generally are persecuted, Africans are despised, Nigerians are suspected. Now, if you are an African American and you are not African and you are not Nigerian, you escape two. All you are dealing with is persecution. If you don't have two, where you are an African American and you are an African, you now have persecution and disrespect. But if you now add Nigerian to your situation, you now become persecuted, disrespected, and suspected by a pure underdog. It doesn't matter what you are trying to do. Whether you are trying to build a ministry or you are trying to build a business, you cannot ignore that context if you want to move forward. Am I talking to you? So context is important. And the reason why Nigerians don't live in America, don't be deceived. The reason why Africans don't live in America is because we don't understand context. Nigerians live in Nigeria inside America. We live in Africa inside America. We live in Nigeria inside Canada. We live in Ghana inside London. That is how we do it. Because we don't understand what it means to be a guest. So we overrate what it means to be resident, forgetting that there's nothing like resident of honor. There's nothing like that. There's no honor for a resident. Hello? There's honor for guests or citizen. Come on now, I'm talking to you. And you can't have a mentality of a resident and expect to be taken seriously at some level. It's guest of honor. So no matter how much permission you have, you must remain a guest. Oh, come on. You must remain a guest. So these are just blocks of thoughts here and there that now forces us to think deeply about the conversation for today. Ignis tenebris. The idea of the necessity of darkness. Have you read the American Declaration of Independence? Do you know how the statement says that we hold this self-evident, that all men are born equal? Do you know that everybody who signed that document had a slave? Had slaves, all of them. Everybody that signed that, and I have nothing against it, I'm just stating the facts. Everybody that signed that document had slaves. So what do they mean when they say all men are born equal and they have slaves in their houses? Symposium discussion. Because we have to define what does all men mean. Is it all white men? Or what does men mean? Or is it all, what kind of men are we talking about? Symposium discussion. I have my answers, but that's not my goal today. There is a way the human being can be so legendary in his own deception. Do you know that you cannot deceive anybody until you become masterful in deceiving yourself? You can't. The more you deceive people, the more of a monster you become. Because you tell a lie to somebody, you can't do that successfully except you tell a lie to yourself first. Because every lie or truth is a narrative. And you have to tell yourself that lie. You have to tell it so much and believe it so deeply first on your own before it can stand a chance of being accepted by somebody else. So if you know the level of psychology that has gone into your ability to perpetrate that lie, you will be very naive and stupid to think you are still the same person. For you to tolerate your helplessness, there is a narrative you have to tell yourself. You have to invent a story that allows you to endure or tolerate your nuisance. You must say something to yourself. You must invent some type of lie. You must invent something that makes you comfortable. You really can't fool anybody until you become extremely masterful in fooling yourself. But the tragedy of life is not about those that are designing what foolishness looks like. Are you okay, ma'am? You need something? No. Do you need something? You sure? Are we together? Yes. Please, there will be no, I forgot, I bought something that I'm supposed to give to everybody to use to ask questions when you have a question. I left it on my table at home. Do you understand? I went out of my way all through last night. I toured every store. I finally got it, and I did not bring it. It's classic how my life is. But if you have questions, please just put your hands up. Just don't wait for me to finish. Once I say something that is disturbing or that bothers you, just do this and we'll take it. You are not interrupting me, so don't feel for me. I live for these things. So anytime, at any point, just put your hands up and we'll trash it, okay? So, you're talking about self-deception. So, because of that, human beings have designed all manner of narratives. One of them is the concept of darkness. There's a guy who was really giving his wife a lot of trouble. And he was so sure, very intelligent guy, and he was going up and down. And then they called me into the matter. We sat down, we were talking, and he was bragging and saying so many things. And he was right. Then I told him that, do you know that everything you are saying is only right in your universe? And all the meaning you are attaching to these things, they are correct in your universe. Because in another universe, there's something called wealth index. So in Elon Musk wealth index, what you call $2 million may actually be like $10 by his wealth index. Now, in your universe, it's a lot of money. It's $2 million, a lot of money, but in a different universe, it's $10. No, you don't get what I'm saying. It means that, as at 1999, if Bill Gates was working and $1,000 was dropping per second, it would be a loss for him to stop to be picking it. He will make more money just going and continue to do his business. He will make more money ignoring that drop. I'm giving you facts. He will make more money just ignoring it. $1,000 is dropping per second. If he decides to pause and be picking it, he will lose more money than if he just continue to work and doing his business. So if he really wants to gather that money, he probably hire a staff whose jobs will be picking that money. He will lose more if he makes that his focus. That's a different universe. Think about that. Do you know that the whole of NBA, the whole of NFL, every sports organization in the United States, with all the money, all the endorsement, everything was less than, if I'm correct, was less than 50% of Bill Gates' wealth in 1999. Do you know how many people were on the court, sweating, jumping, earning money, feeling cool? As of 1999, it was so big that they had to break that monopoly. It was too much. And that became a precedent for anybody that would make money after him. So, in the same way, we have a wrong mentality about darkness. And I tell you people, if you don't have the right mentality about darkness, you will make it. You can succeed. You will never fulfill your destiny. You will never. It doesn't matter who is praying for you. It doesn't matter who is laying hands on you. It doesn't matter who is supporting you. You will never. Literally. First of all, a lot of how we see darkness is the narrative of the custodians of the human condition thousands of years ago, who deliberately had to make dark and black into something smaller than white and light. Think about it. Blackmail. You can go on. Black sheep. Have you noticed that anywhere they're going to draw the devil is black? Anywhere they have to draw the devil is black. And anywhere they have to draw Jesus is white. And it is impossible for Jesus to be white. It's impossible. I hope you know. Jesus could not have been white. Even if you don't know anything, we know it's from the Middle East. He's not Caucasian. We know that for sure. My own real belief is that he's black, but I'm not going to stress you with that because it's irrelevant. Whether he's black or white doesn't change the weight of the cross. So that doesn't matter to me. But my personal opinion, if you ask me to explain it, I think he's black. But it's irrelevant. In Genesis 1, let us read something that God said about darkness. Can somebody read how God said, what darkness was before? Are you there? Genesis 1. Let there be light. Genesis 1 verse 1. Can we put a mic on him? Can we just let him hold something so I can get into the... Genesis 1:1. Yes.
Genesis 1:1 NLT. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters.
And darkness
covered the deep waters.
A lot of people interpret that darkness as evil instead of a concentration. They define it as evil. Go ahead.
And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was
good.
And then he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night.
Good. Let's stop there. So that darkness has nothing to do with evil, or just classification of the environment. Because when the light came, it did not come to eliminate the darkness. It just made a distinction between day and night. And while the light represented the day, the darkness that was there represented the night. There's no evil in this context. Now, don't forget, the devil was already on ground. You know that when you read in the beginning, in Genesis 1, it's not the beginning of God. Do you understand? Because some people think that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That means that God was homeless before he created the heaven. So, including the heaven, where was he? So, that heaven and earth is not God's domain. Come on now. He already had a domain that he was creating from. So, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. It's not his house. That heaven is not God's base. In fact, that particular heaven and earth, the word earth there is not actually planet Earth. Your modern English reads the word earth as planet Earth. The word translated earth there is actually the material half of the entire universe. Of the entire universe. And the word translated heaven there is the spiritual half of the entire universe. Earth in Genesis 1 was not a planet. Earth in modern English is planet. Are we together? Now, let's pause there. Let me just run you through some basic scriptures.
Do you enjoy Olakunle Soriyan's content here on YouTube? Then you should be on Illuminate. It's the mentoring platform of Olakunle Soriyan with over 25 years of private sessions, decoded frameworks, and content unavailable anywhere else. Visit www.pkilluminate.com. Subscription starting from $60 per month.
Feedback from the future.